Okay. What is up, everybody? Happy Friday to you. We made it. We made it. I'm about 5 minutes late. Usually, I will just jump onto the live stream, right? Straight after work, and I'll just be so tired and exhausted. It's like, okay, I haven't rejuvenated myself at all. So, I just needed to rejuvenate myself afterwards. And while we wait for some other people to come in, I'm going to finish getting myself situated. Alrighty. Happy Friday to you. I'm not going to be on very long, but I caught the interview that Trump did with Bloomberg. I think people get lost in the sauce. There's so much going on between both of these candidates that I think sometimes we get trapped in the sauce of everything. But I was catching the interview that Trump did with Bloomberg about 3 days ago at the Chicago Economic Club. And there was a couple of things about this interview that I thought was very interesting. And so I wanted to talk about them. So if you missed this live stream, you were able to catch it in my live streams tab on the replay. I am just queuing up this Donald Trump Bloomberg interview. All right. And they might be censoring this content because obviously they don't want people talking and digesting some of the things that some of these people are saying. So, you know how it be. If you like this content, please subscribe, like the content so it bumps up in the algorithm because YouTube is really good at suppressing people who just want to talk things out without all the craziness. I don't like to inflame people. I just like to talk about things and kind of digest things as I see them. So Donald Trump 3 days ago did an interview with Bloomberg News, and let me just let this commercial pass through. And I am going to dissect this interview the same way that I did with the Kamala Harris interviews. Um, I will like to note, and let me just get past some of this extra stuff. Here we go. And this was about 3 days ago. And one of the things that David particularly stuck out to me immediately is Trump loves tariffs. He's not like coy about it. This man loves him some tariffs. And, a lot of people who don't understand tariffs and how they work, they may be perplexed as to why people may be making a big deal that Trump is considering increasing, tariffs on foreign lands, right? And I was trying to digest that too. Obviously, we're all getting smarter here as we're awakening and understanding how things work in this country. Um, you do a little bit more research. So, in this blog, we're going to talk about what a tariff is, right? How they've been leveraged, and I got a video teed up about that, and why I believe Trump is so in love with them, right? And Trump actually tells you in this Bloomberg interview why he's so in love with tariffs, right? Now, I do want to make sure that I do note before some of the passionately ignorant people come on board talking about, you know, you know, Trump and his tariffs. It's like the Biden administration actually did keep Trump's tariffs, and they were actually considering increasing them. All right. So this is something to note on both sides, that the Trump administration, they were all in on tariffs. The Biden administration, if they were so passionate about them and if they didn't like them, right, they would have got rid of them, but they didn't, right? So that's something to note as I kind of go into this interview. And I'm not going to go into the entire interview because I don't want my channel to get struck. YouTube is already suppressing my content. So I got to be careful. But again, this is Trump's interview with Bloomberg News at the Chicago Economic Club, or the Economic Club of Chicago. And he did something similar here in Detroit. All right, so let's get to it.
I want to say two things at the beginning. The first is just for the record, and for
And this
those
is just
people
fair usage.
watching on television, the Economic Club of Chicago and Bloomberg both invited Vice President Harris to a similar interview about her economic plans that she has declined so far.
Okay, so off rip, he starts off this conversation with, we did invite Kamala Harris to do a similar interview, and her camp declined to do this interview, right? And this is a real drilling on the economic policies. And I think when sometimes you're looking at all these smorgasbords of interviews of these candidates, sometimes it's notable to look at where they're doing the interview, because sometimes that will help you to center on a policy point, right? So, for example, he's at the Bloomberg News. I guess they're having an economic forum at the Economic Club of Chicago, right? That is a worthy interview point to entertain. That is an interview, if you are interested in Trump's economic policies, for you to be watching, okay? And I'm not plugging Bloomberg. I don't have any, I'm very unaffiliated. I don't even have my YouTube channel monetized because I'm that unaffiliated. But what I'm saying is that these are the important interviews if you care about the economy. So he's making note that he invited both candidates to come out and stand on their economic policies. And they did not, and Kamala Harris, obviously, they did not want to do that. So, but Trump did.
And second, just to set some parameters about this interview, which I was just discussing with President Trump, we're going to focus on business and the economy. And that's partly because this is a business audience, but it's also because voters insist that the economy is the main issue that matters when they vote.
So, okay. And just check this out. This was 3 days ago. And again, if you care about the economy, you're interested in Donald Trump taking a deep dive into his economic positions, this would be a good thing to watch. And I'll tell you some of my takeaways after we go into this interview. Now, mind you, again, I'm going to say this until the cows come home. All right. Donald Trump is older than Kamala Harris. He is older than Kamala Harris. But this guy knows what he's talking about. I mean, even, and I don't want to seem ageist over here because I know a lot of sharp older people, but let's just face it, this is just a normal part of life, right? We don't think as quickly, as we get older, and that's okay. Some of us are still sharp in our tender ages, right? And Donald Trump is one of those individuals who is still pretty sharp in his tender age. He knows exactly what he did, why he did it. He's able to defend his positions, and he's very dogmatic about it, And, people would say, well, he does word salads too. But to me, at least his word salads are getting to the root of the why, right? I just want to know the why. I don't know what the was. I want to know the why. So let's get to it. Because I think what you're going to find in this discussion, and I'm just summarizing this based off of what I've seen, so I definitely encourage you guys to look at this. But if I could summarize Trump's passion for tariffs, to me, it has everything to do with NAFTA and how NAFTA played out. And so he's going to kind of go in deep about this in this interview. And that's why I said this is a really good interview for people to watch, because he's not just talking about taxing people just because it's a fun thing to do. He has a rationality for why we need to bring back these tariffs. And a lot of it has to do with NAFTA.
I like that crowd. That's a nice group of people. Thank you very much.
Standing ovation.
And how NAFTA played out in America over time.
President Trump, thank you for doing this, as we said. And
this is just fair usage.
Business people of Chicago, like everywhere else, they like.
And he gets right into
a
the
lot
tariffs.
Of the things you want to do in terms of tax cuts and some of the spending proposals. But like many business people, what they're often worried about.
And this is just fair usage, and I apologize for
the Committee for
interrupting.
Responsible Federal Budget, which is a bipartisan outfit, put out some predictions the other day. If you add up all the promises you've made, and your plans would add $7.5 trillion to the debt. That's more than twice the total for Vice President Harris. You're on course to push up
that
debt
is very
up
concerning.
to 150% of GDP. This is a very business-like audience.
Yeah.
Why should they trust you with that?
Because we're about growth. She's got no growth whatsoever, and we're all about growth. We're going to bring companies back to our country. You look at even today, as I was driving over, I see these empty, old, beautiful, like steel mills and factories that are empty and falling down. Some have been converted to senior citizens' homes, but that's not going to do the trick. And we're going to bring the companies back. We're going to lower taxes still further for companies that are going to make their product in the USA. We're going to protect those companies with strong tariffs, because I'm a believer in tariffs. I'm not sure that you are. I don't think you are, but I can.
So basically what Trump is saying is, I am reversing NAFTA. I'm reversing NAFTA. My economic plan is all about reversing NAFTA. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me in summary, that he is more like, I will tax the hell out of any company that's not making their stuff in America.
Congratulate you on your career.
And I love this example because he's going to really break down why he is so passionate about tariffs. That man does not like NAFTA. I think Donald Trump is old enough to kind of have witnessed the results of NAFTA. And when you look at Hillary Clinton, she said things like, we should probably revisit it, right? Because they saw how that bipartisan action disenfranchised American workers. And disproportionately, you're talking about Southern workers, Southern labor classes, and alike. Right. And I always say that Highland Park, Michigan tells the story of NAFTA because you see all these big, huge buildings, industrial business within neighborhoods. So people didn't have to travel like 40, 50 miles for their job because they had the industry right there in their town. And NAFTA really ruined that. Right. And so I'm looking at Trump's economic plan as a complete and aggressive reversal of NAFTA. But what a lot of people are saying is like, okay, well, we can't be that aggressive because we could start a freaking trade war.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff.
This man loves him some tariffs.
It needs a public
What you say?
Believer in tariffs. I'm not sure that you are. I don't think you are, but I congratulate you on your career. But to me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff. And it's my favorite word. It needs a public
He said, this is my favorite word.
firm.
He said he need a PR. He said, Trump said the word tariff needs a PR firm to make it look better, to change his image, because he's like, it's my favorite word. I love it, right? It needs to have a revamp, a re-imaging. He's so
The
silly.
tariffs, do you think that will bring in the revenues? To use another bipartisan group,
Yeah.
Peterson Institute, they say they only bring in $200 billion. That is
Yeah.
that's barely the cost of two of your promises.
Yeah, but that's like for what company are you talking about? Okay, look, I've brought in with tariffs, and I was just getting started. Then COVID came, and we had because I tell you what, I did a very good job in COVID. Nobody knew what the hell it was. I call it the China virus because I like being a little more accurate. But when that came, but we got hundreds of billions of dollars just from China alone, and I hadn't even started yet. But tariffs are two things, if you look at it. Number one is for protection of the companies that we have here and the new companies that will move in, because we're going to have thousands of companies coming into this country. We're going to grow it like it's never grown before.
What is
and
with
we're going to
this?
protect them when they
Like,
come in.
look,
Because
why
we're
do
not gonna have
y'all keep
somebody
making
undercut
Diddy
them.
synonymous with
And I
Trump?
could
These are
give you
two
an
different
example
people
of
with
this
two
if you
different
want.
struggles.
Would you
Y'all
like me to?
so
'Cause it
weird.
just
Give me a quick
happened.
example.
This is why I don't read the chat, because every time I
about
look down, it's something
So
weird.
I've been talking about
Like,
for
go
the
get a
last
swipe on
year,
Tinder and go on a date,
about
because you
Detroit and
weird.
how horribly it has been. It's just horrible because we've been talking about Detroit's coming back for 40 years and it's never come back. And it's very dependent on the car industry. Well, they've lost 60% of the business over a long period of time. And what happened is I found out a friend of mine builds auto plants. That's all he does. He builds auto plants. That's what he's good at. He doesn't want to build an apartment. All he wants to build is, and he builds the biggest in the world. And for the last year and a half, if anybody's heard me speak, I was talking about Mexico is a tremendous challenge for us right now. Tremendous. China is building massive auto plants in Mexico. And they're going to build them, and they're going to take those cars and
And
sell
this
them
is
into
just
the
fair
United
usage.
States. They're very near the border. And they're going to have all the advantages and none of the disadvantages. And that's going to be the end of Michigan. It's going to be the end of, frankly, South Carolina.
So, I think that when I look at this Bloomberg interview, I look at it as Trump is saying, we cannot keep making it easy for these companies overseas to be selling products over here with little, recourse. Like, and it doesn't mean that, we want them selling over here, but at the same time, there has to be some benefit to the United States to them selling their products here, right? We cannot just be like zero tax on these products that are coming into the country, you know. And so there's a video really quickly. And I want to go through this video. It's about 5 minutes because I think it kind of explains kind of where Trump is going with this. Now, what the long term is, would it be, what is the offset? I would say, because we've been sort of knee deep in this sort of globalist, economy where we've just been making, trade very convenient for a lot of other people. And, I think Trump is like, we got to walk back that convenience because we got a debt to bring down and we can't keep doing that, doing favors for people and not really taxing them on things that they're selling in the United States. But I want to get some perspective because his position definitely parallels, you know, almost an aggressive reversal of NAFTA.
Happened. What did NAFTA do that was good?
And
what
this
did
is
it do
just
that
fair
was
usage
bad?
and shout out to courts.
To understand that, you have to understand America's relationship with avocados and shoes. One part of NAFTA we don't often think about is this. NAFTA changed how Americans eat. One of the most successful Mexican imports to the US is avocados.
Avocado consumption in the United States has exploded. Going from 1 pound per person to 7 over the course of 20 years.
That's Quartz avocado expert David Yanofsky.
U.S. production has been flat, but Mexican
this is
production
fair
has been
usage.
through the roof.
Before NAFTA, Americans didn't eat a lot of avocados. They only had access to them from California and Florida, and only seasonally.
So they're stating this case that, hey, NAFTA provided access to Americans to have goods and products that we wouldn't normally have access to all year round, right? So that was like a pro for a lot of people. So it's like, cool. Well, the American farmers who kind of produce the avocados, they get wiped out of the game. They weren't that many anyways because they weren't a big part of the American market because we weren't eating that many avocados prior to NAFTA, right? Right? We only had them from two states, right? Now with our partnership with Mexico, now we can have Mexico avocados all year round because we are being supplied from a country that essentially grows them all year round.
Most of the avocados in the world are grown in Mexico.
And for 80 years, Mexican avocados were banned from the US. Americans didn't even know they liked them. But NAFTA made them available year-round. And it turns out, Americans love avocados.
It has become a much more broadly popular food.
And that has actually created more avocado demand, which has meant good business for US growers too. When it came to avocados, NAFTA was a win-win. It created this whole new staple of the American diet, and it built up this huge part of the Mexican economy. And avocados are just one example of this. Americans now drink a lot of Mexican beer and eat Mexican mangoes and papayas and fresh bell peppers and cucumbers from Canada.
So,
certain places around the world are better at making certain things, and to create efficiency in the global economy, one nation devotes its resources to the things that it's good at and exchanges those things for the things that another nation is good at or is better at. So the United States is really good at growing corn, and we ship a lot of corn to Mexico. In turn, the United States buys a lot of avocados in the other direction.
And often, that arrangement works out really well. But what if there's something that two countries are equally good at making? And the only difference is that one country has cheaper labor.
Historically, trade deals have been between high-income countries.
Dan Kopp is our economics reporter.
The amount of low-skilled and high-skilled labor in those countries are relatively similar, and so it's not going to have necessarily a dramatic effect on the composition of labor.
But around the time when NAFTA was signed, that balance between the US and Mexico
had way more low-skilled laborers than us. We were sitting at 14% as of 1997. Mexico had 70% of low-skilled laborers. In 1997, we had more high-skilled laborers than Mexico did. We were sitting at 34% of high-skilled laborers. Mexico was sitting at 13% in 1997.
Mexican labor is cheaper. But before NAFTA, that really didn't matter. By the time a Mexican product made it across the border, it'd be slapped with a tax. So Mexican manufacturers were never really a threat. And certain industries in the US were heavily protected by taxes. Like, for example,
shoe manufacturers at that time had something like 15 to 17% tariffs on their product.
Okay.
So, that made it, 17% more expensive to get the product from Mexico. As a result of NAFTA, those tariffs went down all the way to zero over 10 years. And that meant that it was much less appealing to do manufacturing of that good in the United States. And those jobs basically...
So they're like, zero tariffs. Why would I manufacture this in the United States? I mean, shoot, y'all not even taxing us. So we're going to go ahead and produce this in America. Or I'm sorry, in our own country, basically. So with the tariffs going down to zero, it made it less desirable for many companies to want to produce the product in the United States. There's no tariffs, there's no taxes to behold us to produce in the United States at this point.
Basically disappeared.
And that's the story we're familiar with by now. Cheaper Mexican labor means the jobs go to Mexico. But changes like that affected more than just the manufacturing jobs.
It was not only the people who worked in...
So they got this picture of this little town, and it's pretty much showing the trickle-down effect of when that manufacturing site basically gets offshored. All of the local towns basically get taken out of the game.
Factories that lost their jobs, but even the people surrounding them. So if you worked in a coffee shop, or if you worked in a department store in a town that relied on that shoe manufacturer, you would also lose your job.
That's how an entire shoe manufacturing town can be devastated by NAFTA. But
And I'm pretty sure these are the stories that Donald Trump is hearing from a lot of the constituents that he's talking to as he's making his rounds. I've had a lot of people who follow my content. They have actually thanked me for even bringing up NAFTA, because I think people really forget how, devastating over time it really was to the US labor force. And it's just so under discussed, it just irritates me sometimes.
100 miles away from that town, you might have no idea. And that is emblematic of how Americans experience NAFTA's pros and cons. The pros were spread around, a little bit of benefit to a lot of people.
Whether you're in Texas or you're in Washington State or Massachusetts, you can now get shoes cheaper as a result of the products that were made in Mexico. You might be able to get avocados year round.
And most Americans probably didn't even notice those changes. Who really thinks about NAFTA every time they pick up an avocado at the grocery
Give me
store?
1 second, you guys. I got to give something to my daughter. These kids never stop being a liability. I swear to God. They gonna ask you for your earnings. The government gonna ask you for your earnings. The kids gonna ask you for your earnings. Sorry, guys.
But the cons
These
of NAFTA
kids, they
were
like,
concentrated.
they're the only
For a relatively
liabilities that we
small group of
love
people,
that can turn
the
into
pain
assets if
was
we
deep,
raise them right.
and it was deepest in the
Jeez.
American South.
The people who will definitely notice are the people who lose their jobs.
And that is the question at the core of NAFTA. On balance, Americans probably saved money because of it, and they got stuff that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And some people lost their jobs.
So what was the balance there? I guess, the job loss, people losing their jobs or us having access to these things that we wouldn't normally be able to have. And what is the divine balance, right? So, I am, just kind of reading between the lines when I hear, Trump get on Bloomberg. Let me go back to the interview. And he's talking about, tariffs. Um, I can imagine that, this is something that he feels like is necessary. And I want to go kind of jump through this for a little bit because I had to market myself because I run through a lot of content every day, and there's very few content that really catches my attention to even want to do a live stream. But this Bloomberg interview is very good. I do recommend people check it out if you kind of care about Trump's economic position. But Trump is a beast, okay? Trump is a beast, right? And like, when I listen to this particular point here, I'm like, I want a president like this. I really do. I want a president like this because he's really not playing with these people. Some of these people overseas want to go and start playing these little reindeer games, right? And Trump in this little, like this example that he said with Emmanuel Macron, I'm like, this dude got chops, all right? He's not playing with these people, not even the French, right? They tried, they tried, but Trump was like, I'm not playing these games. Do I look like my name is Rudolph to you? My name is Donald J. Trump. Don't play those games. Man, let me get through this commercial because I'm just like, after that, I'm like, y'all know those little thug life videos that come up like afterwards? They got the young brothers and they be like, oh, oh, or they got the little thug life ending to them. This was one of those moments for me listening to Donald Trump.
4 years of this lunacy, and we can't have it anymore. We're not going to have a country left. Okay, currency, very important.
Yes.
And if you want to go to third world status, lose your reserve currency. We have to have that. We cannot lose it. If you'll go to third world.
And so Trump is saying the only reason why I'm going all in on China is because they're trying to be the world reserve currency. So if that is a mission of China, then Trump is like, well, we're going to go out blazing on this, right? Because that is, if you're trying to be the world reserve currency and that's our spot, then obviously you are challenging us. So I'm going to tax your ass out of wazoo with these tariffs so that you understand that I'm not playing with you today.
World status in this country, because you take a look at the way things are running. If a country tells me, sir, we like you very much, but we're going to no longer adhere to being in the reserve currency, we're not going to salute the dollar anymore, I'll say that's okay. And you're going to pay a 100% tariff on everything you sell into the United States. And we love your product. I hope you sell a lot of it into the United States, but you're going to pay 100% tariff.
He said, bitch, don't play with me. Right? Oh, you de-dollarizing? You love American currency, but you're not playing with our currency anymore? Okay, that's cool. 100% tariff on your ass. We hope you sell a lot of products here, right? We want you to sell a lot of products, right? But if you're not using our dollars, right? We 100% tariff on your ass, right? Because we need to benefit. We need to benefit.
We'll then follow it up by saying, sir, it would be an honor to stay with the reserve currency. That will be like just playing. That's not even chess. That's
so, and this is the thing that people have not liked about tariffs, right? Because they're like, well, people use tariffs to punk other nations. People use tariffs to flex power or move other nations into doing other things. But here's the thing. When other nations are doing a little slick shit, right, then it's like you cannot be throwing rocks and then hiding your hands. And then Trump is going to give us an example of one of these nations that tried to do some slick shit.
But you don't have other, listen to this, you don't have other people that can talk that way. You know, a lot of people say,
Kamala Harris,
Trump's policy. But we would like to have another messenger because we don't like him. He's a little
they
bit
think
crazy.
Trump is mean.
And then, actually, it was Lindsey Graham, I must say. He was a progressive, in all fairness. But Lindsey Graham said, but Trump's policy doesn't work without Trump.
What's up, Info Warrior? I see you.
Macron was going to, nice guy, Emmanuel. He's a wise guy, but he's for France, and we're for the USA. You know this story. He was going to tax American companies doing business in France, a very substantial tax. And I told my people, I didn't even like the companies, but I'm representing American companies. And this guy, so I said, call Macron and call his people and say, we're not going to stand for that. And I got Mnuchin and, a lot of guys, smart guys, if I can finish.
Yeah.
I'll go longer if you want.
No, I was going to ask you about the Federal Reserve.
You got to be able to finish a thought because it's very important. This is big stuff we're talking about. You can't go that quickly.
You've gone from the dollar to
So
Macron.
let me just tell you. So I said, no, I'm just telling you basic, it's called the weave. It's all these different things happening.
Yeah.
So let me just say, so I said to Mnuchin, call him up and say, no way. He did, and he came back to see me. He said, they won't do it, sir. It's too late.
So I don't know if you guys can hear this, but Emmanuel Macron decided that he was going to place a larger tariff on American companies. And Trump was like, I didn't really even care for these companies, but it was just a principle that they were doing it more than any other country. They were taxing our companies like this ridiculous tariff. So Trump told his guys, call them and told them, don't do that, right?
I said to somebody else, you call him. Then I said, let me do it.
So they was like, so his guys came back and was like, they won't do it, right? Basically, they're saying the legislation has already went through, like whoop de whoop de whoop, it's out of our hands, we can't do it, right? So Trump was like, let me do it, right? Like sometimes if you want something done, you got to do it your damn self.
Called him, and I said, Emmanuel, you're taxing American companies very substantially. You're not doing it with other companies. You must think we're stupid. It's not going to happen. But Donald, I cannot do anything. It's too late. Or it was approved by a legislature. I said, that's okay. Here's the story. Every bottle of wine and champagne that you send into the United States, effective immediately, and I'm signing it as I speak, I'm charging you 100% on
This
every
mo-
bottle of wine and champagne.
Trump gonna 100% tax your ass too. He's like, I ain't gonna do
Every bottle of
30%,
wine and champagne that comes into the
100%.
United States of America has a tax on, starting on Monday morning, this was a Friday, of 100%. And that's better than you're doing, okay? And he said, no, you cannot do that. I said, I've done it. It's already signed. Monday morning goes, may I call you back? Yes, he calls me back in about 3 minutes. We have decided to remove the tax from the companies. I did this all day long. But
So basically, Trump is saying that France tried to punk American companies, right, with these ridiculous taxes. Notice his little magic word. If you keep flexing on our companies, your ass about to get 100% tariff. All right, I'm gonna tax your ass 100% on all the wine. And Americans, we love wine. We love our, wine. Some of us, we kind of snooty. We got it like that, so we getting a little French wine, right? Right? He was like, you trying to lose that market, Emmanuel? You trying to get that 100% tax, right? He's like, no, 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 right? And he backed away. That's a negotiator, right? You work with the tools that you have, right? If these people trying to do this little slick shit, right? This is where the tariff really do come into play, right? You over there taxing American companies way more than any other companies. Why? Oh, it's out of my hand. Oh, it's out of your hand. Guess what's in my hands? 100% tariff taxing your ass. This is why he said the tariff is like his favorite word in the dictionary. I mean, this man really loves tariffs, right? But he has a really good rationality. And I think if you look at this entire Bloomberg interview, you're going to see that at the root of his rationality is NAFTA. To me, Trump's policies are an aggressive, reversal of NAFTA, right? So some of these overseas companies have been at zero, and I think and some of them haven't been as of recently because obviously Biden, Harris, they maintained Trump's tariffs and they were actually considering increasing them as well. So they understand that this is a revenue stream that could be used, but it can also be a hedge, against threats against the US dollar too as a world reserve currency as well. So this is kind of like where I think Trump is going with that, or what his basis is based off of this Bloomberg interview. If you caught this interview and you got something different, I love, 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 love to understand your take. But I just really do believe that this is where he's at with his economic policies, where he's really kind of walking back NAFTA. I think he's walking back NAFTA. Now, what is the long-term effects going to be? Over time, because we kind of have been knee deep in kind of how we've been trade wise for decades now. So that is, kind of left to remain to be seen, right? But that is what it seems like to me. That is what it seems like to me. Yes, you understand the market too. I passed my Series 7 and 66. Um, let's see. Trump represents my core values. I see you. I mean, here's the thing. a lot of people were hurt by NAFTA. And if I didn't have family members that weren't impacted and displaced by it, I wouldn't be so. No, actually, I would be, because beyond my family, other people's families have heard it. But I know people directly. I see towns that have been directly hurt by these policies. Um, and I think as much as they tax the American people, the concept of zero taxes anywhere else in our economic stream is just unfathomable to me. So I'm kind of on Team Trump with these tariffs. I think they should exist, and even down to the tax breaks of the companies. I do think that corporations should get tax breaks, but they shouldn't be ridiculous. And there should be stipulations with those tax breaks that that additional capital that you guys are raising should be going towards feeding people and generating jobs, not going into some big CEO's pockets who's just delegating people from up top, but he really doesn't even know what the operations look like full circle, right? Some nepotistic dude that just got the job because his daddy or his daddy's friend got him the job. Stuff like that, it shouldn't go there. So there definitely should be, conditions with the any subsidy or tax break. So you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. I really don't like being on very long, but I just wanted to just share these videos with you, this perspective, because, again, like I said, I really do believe that he's trying to bring some balance back into international trade. The globalist model, obviously, it doesn't really work for the United States long term. And I don't think that this is a isolationist position that he has. I just think that, if the United States is a corporation, we need to operate like a corporation, right? And we need to get up on them taxes, right? We need to get up on them tariffs, right? So, anyways, you guys, you have a wonderful day. Love your neighbor as yourself. If you would not disrespect or abuse yourself, do not disrespect or abuse your neighbor. And just remember, the closest neighbor to you are the people in your family. Have a wonderful night and happy Sabbath to my people who observe. Shabbat Shalom to you. Bye.